Hey adventurers, today is going to be another book review. This is for A Touch of Light by Thiago Abdalla. This is a high fantasy novel, it's also a self-published novel, and it's an epic fantasy, and it's the debut novel of the author. Hopefully I'll be able to make it through this review. I have been filming for a while now and my voice is starting to go, so we will hope that it works. This is a good time to say, if you like what you're seeing from an Erudite adventure, we would love it if you would like the video and comment down below with your thoughts on the video or on the channel or anything like that, and to subscribe if you haven't already. So let's get into this review. This is a self-published and the debut novel of Thiago Abdalla. It is the first book in the Ashes of Avarin series. There's also a prequel novella called A Prelude to Ashes, but I haven't yet read that one. I have heard that it's a much better starting point for the series and this world, for this Ashes of Avarin series, than A Touch of Light is, but I don't know because I haven't read it yet. I would trust those other people who say that. I heard of this book mostly through the Wizardly Duo Discord and through, well, really several different places, all over BookTube. The Wizardly Duo Discord is very active in the self-published and indie fantasy sphere. There's lots of stuff that goes on in there, lots of authors, lots of self-published authors and stuff like that. And so I did hear about this book through that. Mr. Abdalla himself talking about it. The cover instantly intrigued me. So I don't know when I first saw this cover or how I first saw it, but I saw it on that Discord channel and I was like, wow, that cover just really catches my attention. It's absolutely beautiful cover. So the cover instantly had me intrigued. But then when I heard that it also had griffins in it, I was sold. I knew that I had to read this book at some point because beautiful cover, griffins, that's all I need to know. I'd heard lots of great things about it leading up to when I finally picked it up. And I had watched a discussion between Thiago and Alan from Library of Alexandria, and then the audiobook narrator Kevin Kemp, who narrated this book. Those three had a discussion on this book. I don't think I ever ended up watching the entire thing, but I watched, I think, like the second half of it, and in that there's a time when Kevin Kemp does a narration and he goes through and narrates a portion of the novel, and that small sample that he shared, it told me all that I needed to know about picking up this book in audiobook format. And so I wanted to at least read it in audiobook format too. I still want the physical book so that I can have that beautiful cover, but I haven't gotten that yet. I will get that at some point. So I had every reason to want to read this book and zero reasons to not want to. And let me tell you, it was amazing. There was definitely a darkness and grittiness to it, and it deals a lot with religion, meaning in-world religion, not so much our world religion, because they aren't the same, and how that affects the characters and how they respond to things. It also has a very interesting magic system that I don't actually fully understand. Unsurprisingly, I don't ever fully understand magic systems after a first read. But I think with a reread and a physical read through, and maybe even probably also with some more reading of the other books in the series, which as of right now I believe only the prequel novella is out, with some of those other things I think I could get a lot more of it and get it really figured out. So all of that is really kind of just preamble to my actual review, because I waited too long after finishing reading the book to write the review. I'm just going based off of what I remember. I will say that the writing style, while really nice and one that I really liked, does take a bit more focus. So it takes a bit more focus, kind of like Tolkien, where it's not actually hard to understand. You need to spend a little bit more time focusing on it rather than just speed reading through it or skimming through it. You kind of have to actually listen and pay attention to what's going on a lot more than some other books. This is one that I'll definitely be rereading sooner rather than later, plus I'll be picking up the prequel novella at some point. I really love the book, but because of things like it taking a little bit more focus to follow completely and not fully understanding the magic system and stuff like that, it's definitely one that I'll want to reread at some point relatively soon. I do think there is some adult content in it, but there wasn't very much of it if I remember rightly. There's also some language, and though I would prefer there to be no language, I understand that some writers don't have that same issue or don't have that same perspective as I do. And when it was used in this book, I felt like it was well placed. It didn't seem like it was just being used because it could be, but that it actually had a purpose in being used where it was. And there wasn't very much of it at all from what I remember. There was a couple times, maybe a handful of times, where a character used some language, but for the amount, there really wasn't very much, considering the size of the book that it is and the type of fantasy that it is even. It is a pretty violent and gory book though. There's quite a bit of detail given in those moments, but instead of it becoming gratuitous, it felt intentional and necessary for the tone of the book. It was not a terribly dark book by any means, but there definitely was a lot of darkness to it. Ties into the type of magic system and how those types of things worked. It's a dark world, but the book itself isn't necessarily terribly dark, I guess. I don't usually use quotes in my reviews, but because of the many themes, and one of those being the importance of hope, I felt like this would be a good one to include. So, her curse, what she'd done with it, had given her a twisted sense of hope. Only a sliver, but some hope was better than none. And there were really 3 quotes that I wrote down in my list of quotes that I really like from this book, and that was one of the ones that I wrote down because it just really stood out to me and really played into the themes. So the necessity of hope is a major theme, as is faith, and faith being a choice, not a something that you're forced into, but it actually being true faith being a choice. And I really appreciated that. I found all the characters to be really interesting as well. I didn't necessarily like each of them. That is to say, I didn't necessarily think like they were good guys or whatever it might have been, but that they all felt like fully fleshed out characters and their individual storylines were rather interesting to follow. So I can appreciate a character for how they're written and for the skill and everything that goes into creating that character, and I don't necessarily have to like the character for who they are. But as a character, I think I think there was 3 main characters if I'm remembering correctly, and all 3 of those main characters were all very well written, very well done. One other thing that I noticed and really, really appreciate was the love and relationship between one of the husband and wives, the relationship that they had, and how important that was to their characters. But then going forward, how much that drove the motivation and the storyline of one of the characters. And just seeing a depiction of a husband and wife relationship that felt realistic, that of 2 characters who actually love each other and want to do what's best for each other. I really appreciated seeing that because it's not always something that you see. So overall, I had a very positive experience with this book, and I'm very excited to see what else Thiago Abdalla has for us in the future. It's definitely a great self-pub fantasy novel. Just know that it isn't a young adult novel. It's very much an adult novel, but that's not to say that it's full of unnecessary adult content. Everything that was in it I felt like was necessary to the character development. I mean, it could have been done without it, yeah, probably, but it didn't take away from it, in my opinion, because of the way that it was utilized. It was utilized as a tool, not as a throwaway existence, I guess. I'm not entirely sure how to describe what I'm thinking about there, but if you understand my point of view, I think you can understand what I'm trying to get at. So overall, definitely loved this book, and I can't wait to read more. If I had one complaint, it would be that I wanted more griffins. And I think there will be more griffins in other books. But that being said, very good book. Very much really enjoyed this book, and I can't wait to read more from Thiago Abdalla, because I think that he is going to have a very good career with his writing. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday. We have our social medias linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.